Welcome back to Sleepyhead Society, where timeless tales weave magical dreams. Tonight we're journeying into the enchanted world of the Brothers Grimm, those beloved fairy tales that have captivated hearts for generations. From Snow White's peaceful slumber to Sleeping Beauty's century-long rest, these classic stories are perfect companions for your own drift into dreamland. Before we step into the fairy tale forest, please give this video a like if you enjoy these timeless stories, and leave a comment sharing your favourite Grimm's fairy tale. We'd love to know which magical worlds bring you the sweetest dreams. Now settle in comfortably, let your eyes grow heavy, and allow these gentle tales of magic, adventure, and happy endings to carry you softly into sleep. Sweet dreams, and thank you for joining the Sleepyhead Society. Snow White. In a kingdom far away, a queen sits by her window during a snowstorm sewing with an ebony frame. She pricks her finger, and 3 drops of blood fall on the white snow. She wishes for a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Soon after, she gives birth to such a daughter, named Snow White, but dies in childbirth. The king remarries a beautiful but vain woman who owns a magic mirror. Every day she asks, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" For years the mirror answers that she is the fairest, but when Snow White turns 7, the mirror declares Snow White the most beautiful. Consumed by jealousy, the queen orders a huntsman to kill Snow White in the forest. Unable to harm the innocent child, the huntsman tells Snow White to run away and brings the queen a boar's heart as proof of the deed. Lost in the forest, Snow White discovers a tiny cottage belonging to 7 dwarfs. She cleans their home and they allow her to stay in exchange for keeping house. Meanwhile, the magic mirror reveals Snow White is still alive. The queen disguises herself 3 times to kill Snow White, with a tight bodice, a poisoned comb, and finally a poisoned apple. The 3rd attempt succeeds, and Snow White falls into a death-like sleep. The dwarfs place her in a glass coffin on a mountain top. A prince finds her, and when his servants carry the coffin away, the piece of poisoned apple dislodges from her throat, awakening her. They marry and live happily ever after, while the evil queen dances herself to death in red-hot iron shoes at their wedding. Cinderella, Aschenputtel. A wealthy merchant's wife lies dying and calls her only daughter to her bedside, telling her to remain good and pious, and that God will always protect her. The woman dies and is buried beneath a hazel tree that the daughter plants on her grave. The father remarries a woman with 2 daughters who are beautiful but cruel-hearted. They force Cinderella to do all the household work and sleep by the hearth in the ashes, earning her the nickname Aschenputtel, Ash Girl. When the father travels to a fair, he asks what gifts his daughters desire. The stepsisters request fine clothes and jewels, but Cinderella asks only for the first branch that brushes against his hat. He brings her a hazel branch, which she plants on her mother's grave. Her tears water it until it grows into a beautiful tree where a white bird grants her wishes. When the king announces a 3-day festival for his son to choose a bride, the stepsisters prepare elaborate gowns. Cinderella begs to attend, but her stepmother gives her impossible tasks. After completing them through the help of birds, she's still denied permission. The white bird provides her with magnificent gowns and golden slippers for each night of the festival. The prince dances only with her, but she escapes each night before he can discover her identity. On the 3rd night, the prince spreads pitch on the stairs, trapping one of her golden slippers. He searches the kingdom for the foot that fits the slipper. The stepsisters mutilate their feet to fit the shoe, but birds reveal their deception. When Cinderella tries on the slipper, it fits perfectly. She marries the prince, and the birds peck out the stepsister's eyes as punishment for their cruelty. Hansel and Gretel. Near a great forest lives a poor woodcutter with his wife and 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. During a terrible famine, the family has barely enough bread to survive. The wife convinces her husband they must abandon the children in the forest, or they'll all starve. Hansel overhears this plan and fills his pockets with white pebbles. The next morning the parents lead the children deep into the forest. Hansel secretly drops pebbles along the path, and when the parents abandon them, the children follow the pebbles home by moonlight. When the parents try again, Hansel can only gather breadcrumbs which birds eat, leaving the children truly lost. After wandering for 3 days, they discover a house made entirely of gingerbread, cake, and candy. As they begin eating the house, an old woman emerges. She appears kind and invites them inside, feeding them milk, pancakes, apples, and nuts before tucking them into soft beds. However, she's actually a witch who lures children to fatten and eat them. She has poor eyesight, but an excellent sense of smell for detecting human flesh. The witch locks Hansel in a cage and forces Gretel to cook rich foods to fatten him. Each day she feels Hansel's finger to check if he's ready to eat, but clever Hansel extends a thin bone instead. After a month of waiting, the impatient witch decides to cook both children. She orders Gretel to check if the oven is hot enough. Realizing the witch intends to push her in, Gretel pretends not to understand and asks for a demonstration. When the witch leans forward, Gretel shoves her into the oven and bolts it shut. The witch burns to death, and Gretel frees Hansel. They fill their pockets with the witch's jewels and pearls before finding their way home. Their stepmother has died, and their father joyfully welcomes them back. With the witch's treasure they live comfortably ever after. Rapunzel. A man and woman long desperately for a child. When the wife finally becomes pregnant, she develops an irresistible craving for Rapunzel, rampion, a plant growing in the walled garden next door which belongs to a powerful witch. Her husband climbs the wall to steal some, but the witch catches him. She agrees to let him take all the Rapunzel his wife desires, but demands their unborn child in return. When a beautiful daughter is born, the witch takes her away and names her Rapunzel. At age 12, the witch locks Rapunzel in a tall tower in the forest with no door or stairs, only a window at the very top. When the witch visits, she calls, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," and climbs up the girl's extraordinarily long golden braids. Rapunzel lives alone for years, singing to pass the time. One day, a prince rides by and hears her beautiful voice. He watches the witch's visits and learns the magic words. When the witch leaves, he calls to Rapunzel and climbs her hair. They fall in love and meet regularly. Rapunzel agrees to escape by weaving a ladder from silk he brings her. However, she accidentally reveals the prince's visits to the witch by mentioning how much heavier he is than her. Furious, the witch cuts off Rapunzel's hair and banishes her to a desolate wilderness. When the prince calls that evening, the witch drops the severed braids and reveals Rapunzel's fate. In despair, the prince leaps from the tower. Thorns break his fall but blind him, and he wanders the wilderness for years. Eventually his path crosses Rapunzel's, now living with the twin children she bore him. Her tears of joy restore his sight, and they return to his kingdom to live happily together. Little Red Riding Hood, Little Red Cap. A sweet little girl received a red velvet cap from her grandmother, which she wears so often that everyone calls her Little Red Cap. One day, her mother asks her to take cake and wine to her sick grandmother who lives in the forest. She warns the child to stay on the path and not dawdle. As Little Red Cap enters the woods, she encounters a wolf who asks where she's going. Innocently, she tells him about visiting her grandmother and points out the house location. The cunning wolf suggests she pick flowers for her grandmother, knowing this will delay her. While she gathers bouquets, he races to the grandmother's house, swallows the old woman whole, and disguises himself in her nightgown and cap. When Little Red Cap arrives, she notices something different about her grandmother. "What big ears you have," she observes. "All the better to hear you with," the wolf replies. "What big eyes you have," she continues. "All the better to see you with." Finally, "What a big mouth you have." "All the better to eat you with," the wolf growls, jumping up and swallowing her whole. Satisfied, the wolf falls into a deep sleep. A huntsman passing by hears loud snoring and finds the wolf. Suspecting the animal has eaten the grandmother, he cuts open its stomach with scissors. Little Red Cap and her grandmother emerge unharmed. They fill the wolf's belly with heavy stones, and when it awakens and tries to flee, the weight causes it to collapse and die. The huntsman takes the wolf's pelt. The grandmother eats the cake and wine to regain her strength, and Little Red Cap learns to obey her mother and stay on safe paths. The Frog Prince, the Frog King. A beautiful princess loves to play with her golden ball by a deep well in the forest. One day the ball falls into the water and sinks beyond reach. She weeps bitterly until a frog surfaces and offers to retrieve it in exchange for her friendship, promising to eat from her plate, drink from her cup, and sleep in her bed. Desperately wanting her ball back, she agrees, though she has no intention of keeping her promise. The frog recovers the ball, but when he asks to accompany her home, she runs away laughing. The next evening, as the princess dines with her father the king, someone knocks at the door. The frog has come to claim her promise. Initially horrified, the princess explains the situation to her father, who insists she honour her word, declaring that promises must be kept. Reluctantly, she shares her meal and drink with the disgusting frog. When bedtime comes, she's repulsed by the thought of the slimy creature in her bed. In some versions, she throws him against the wall in anger. In others, she reluctantly takes him to her room. At that moment of acceptance or rejection, the frog transforms into a handsome prince. He explains that a wicked witch cursed him to remain a frog until a princess would befriend him. They marry and live happily together, travelling to his kingdom in a golden carriage, driven by his faithful servant Heinrich, whose heart was bound with iron bands to prevent it from breaking with grief over his master's curse. As they ride away, Heinrich's heart bands burst with joy, making loud cracking sounds that initially alarm the couple until they learn of his devoted happiness. Rumpelstiltskin. A poor miller, wanting to impress the king, boasts that his daughter can spin straw into gold. The king locks the girl in a room full of straw with a spinning wheel, threatening to kill her if she hasn't turned it all to gold by morning. She weeps helplessly until a strange little man appears and offers to spin the straw for her in exchange for her necklace. He accomplishes the impossible task overnight. The greedy king repeats the challenge in a larger room, and again the little man helps her, this time for her ring. On the third night, in an even larger room, she has nothing left to offer. The little man agrees to help if she promises him her firstborn child when she becomes queen. Desperate, she agrees. The king, amazed by the gold, marries her immediately. A year later, when she gives birth to a beautiful baby, the little man returns to claim his payment. The queen offers him all the riches in the kingdom instead, but he refuses, saying something living is more valuable than treasure. Seeing her tears, he gives her a chance. If she can guess his name within 3 days, she may keep her child. She sends messengers throughout the land to collect unusual names. On the first 2 days, she guesses many names, but none are correct. On the third day, a messenger reports seeing a peculiar little man dancing around a fire, singing about how no one knows his name is Rumpelstiltskin. When the queen correctly guesses his name, he becomes so furious that he stamps his right foot so hard it goes through the floor. Then he grabs his left foot and tears himself in two. The queen keeps her child and lives happily with her family, having learned the power of wit over desperation. The Bremen Town Musicians. A donkey who has served his master faithfully for many years realizes his owner plans to kill him because he's becoming too old and weak to carry heavy loads. He flees toward Bremen, hoping to become a town musician. Along the way, he meets a dog lying exhausted on the road. The dog explains that his master wanted to kill him because he's too old to hunt effectively. The donkey invites him to join the musical venture in Bremen. They soon encounter a cat sitting sadly on the path. She reveals that her mistress tried to drown her because she's too old to catch mice efficiently. The donkey welcomes her to their band. Finally, they meet a rooster perched on a gate, crowing desperately. He explains that guests are coming tomorrow, and his mistress plans to cook him for soup. The four animals decide to travel together to Bremen to start their musical careers. As night falls, they seek shelter and spot a light through the forest trees. They discover a house where robbers are counting stolen money and enjoying a feast. The animals devise a plan. The donkey stands by the window. The dog climbs on his back. The cat climbs on the dog and the rooster perches on top. Together, they make such a tremendous noise, braying, barking, meowing, and crowing, that the terrified robbers flee, thinking demons have invaded their hideout. The animals enjoy the feast and settle in for the night. When one robber returns to investigate, the cat scratches him, the dog bites him, the donkey kicks him, and the rooster crows loudly. The robber reports that witches have taken over the house. The animals decide they like their new home so much that they never continue to Bremen, living together happily as the most unusual musical group ever formed. Sleeping Beauty, Little Briar Rose. A king and queen desperately want a child. After many years, the queen gives birth to a beautiful daughter. To celebrate, they host a magnificent feast and invite 12 of the 13 wise women in the kingdom, having only 12 golden plates. The uninvited 13th wise woman arrives angry and curses the princess to prick her finger on a spindle at age 15 and die. The 12th wise woman, who hasn't yet given her blessing, softens the curse. Instead of dying, the princess will fall into a deep sleep for 100 years. Determined to protect his daughter, the king orders every spindle in the kingdom destroyed. The princess grows into a beautiful, kind, and clever young woman. On her 15th birthday, while exploring the castle alone, she discovers an old woman spinning in a tower room. Curious about the spindle, she asks to try spinning. The moment she touches it, she pricks her finger and instantly falls into the deep sleep. The same spell overtakes everyone else in the castle: the king, queen, servants, animals, even the flies on the walls. Thick briars grow around the entire castle, completely hiding it from view. Over the years, many princes attempt to penetrate the thorny barrier to rescue the sleeping princess, but the briars hold them fast and they perish. After exactly 100 years, another prince approaches. The briars miraculously part before him like a pathway of flowers. He finds the silent castle and discovers the princess, more beautiful than ever. When he kisses her, she awakens, and simultaneously everyone in the castle stirs to life. The prince and princess fall in love instantly, and their wedding celebration marks the end of the longest sleep in fairy tale history. The Golden Goose. A simple young man named Dummling, considered foolish by his family, shares his meagre lunch with a grey-haired old man in the forest, when his two cleverer brothers had refused the same request. In gratitude, the old man tells him where to find a golden goose beneath a certain tree. When Dummling retrieves the goose, he discovers anyone who touches it becomes stuck to it, or to whoever else is already attached. An innkeeper's daughter tries to pluck a golden feather and becomes stuck. Her sister attempts to pull her away and also gets stuck. The parson tries to separate them and becomes attached, followed by the sexton, then two peasants. This creates a ridiculous procession of 7 people stuck to the golden goose, following Dummling wherever he goes. They arrive at a kingdom where the king's daughter has never smiled or laughed. The king has declared that whoever can make her laugh will marry her and inherit the kingdom. When the princess sees the absurd parade of people stumbling and falling while stuck to each other, and the goose, she bursts into laughter for the first time in her life. However, the king doesn't want his daughter marrying a peasant, so he sets impossible tasks for Dummling. First, he must find someone who can drink a cellar full of wine. The old man from the forest appears and accomplishes this task. Next, Dummling must find someone who can eat a mountain of bread, which the old man also manages. Finally, he needs a ship that can sail on both land and water. The old man provides this as well. Seeing that divine forces support Dummling, the king allows the marriage. Dummling and the princess live happily together, and he proves far wiser than anyone expected, ruling the kingdom with kindness and fairness. The 12 Brothers. A king and queen have 12 sons and live happily until the queen becomes pregnant again. The king declares that if the child is a daughter, the 12 sons must die so she can inherit the entire kingdom. He has 12 coffins made and hidden in a locked room, showing them only to the queen. The queen secretly tells her youngest son Benjamin about the danger. If the baby is a girl, she'll hang a red flag from the castle tower as a signal for the brothers to flee. If it's a boy, she'll hang a white flag and they'll be safe. A daughter is born, the red flag appears, and the 12 brothers flee deep into an enchanted forest. They discover a small cottage and live there for 10 years, with Benjamin keeping house while his brothers hunt for food. Meanwhile, their sister grows into a beautiful, kind young woman with a golden star on her forehead. One day, she discovers 12 men's shirts in the laundry and asks her mother about them. Learning about her brothers, she's devastated to realize their exile is her fault. She ventures into the forest to find them, eventually reaching their cottage while they are away hunting. Benjamin returns first and doesn't recognize her, but when she reveals the 12 shirts and explains who she is, there's joyful reunion with all the brothers. However, an evil spell activates. Because she's found them, they transform into 12 ravens and fly away, while the cottage and forest disappear. A wise woman appears and explains that the curse can only be broken if the sister remains silent for 7 years without speaking or laughing. During this time, she must sew 12 shirts from starflowers for her brothers. A king finds her sitting silently in a tree and marries her, despite her inability to speak. His evil mother accuses the mute queen of witchcraft and eating her own children. As the queen is about to be burned at the stake after 7 years, she finishes the 12th shirt just as 12 ravens fly overhead. She throws the shirts over them, and they transform back into her brothers. Now free to speak, she explains everything. The evil mother-in-law is executed, and the family lives together happily in the kingdom. The 6 Swans. A king becomes lost while hunting, and encounters an old woman who offers to help him find his way home if he marries her daughter. Desperate, he agrees, and marries the woman, who is actually a witch. The king has 6 sons and 1 daughter from his previous marriage, and he loves them so dearly that he fears his new wife might harm them. He hides them in a castle deep in the forest, visiting secretly via a magic ball of yarn that shows him the hidden path. The new queen discovers the king's frequent absences and learns about his children through her magical arts. She creates enchanted shirts and follows the yarn to find the castle. When the 6 princes see someone approaching, they run out expecting their father but encounter their stepmother instead. She throws the magic shirts over them, and they immediately transform into swans and fly away. Only the daughter, who stayed hidden inside, escapes the curse. The heartbroken king searches everywhere for his missing children but never finds them. Meanwhile, the daughter, now alone, wanders through the forest until she discovers a hut where 6 little beds are perfectly arranged. She hides and watches 6 swans fly in at evening, shed their feathers, and transform back into her brothers for a brief time each day. They explain they can only resume human form for 15 minutes each evening. The rest of the time they must remain as swans. To break the curse, she must sew 6 shirts from starflowers and remain completely silent for 6 years. She cannot speak or laugh during this entire time. She begins her task immediately. A king from another realm finds her sitting silently in a tree and falls in love with her beauty and gentle nature. He marries her despite her inability to speak. His evil mother disapproves of the mute queen, and when children are born, secretly takes them away and accuses the queen of killing them. After the 3rd child disappears, the queen is sentenced to death. On the day of her execution, 6 years have passed, and she has completed all but 1 sleeve of the final shirt. As she's led to the stake, 6 swans fly overhead. She throws the shirts over them, and they transform back into her brothers, except the youngest, whose left arm remains a wing because his shirt was incomplete. Now free to speak, she explains the truth about the missing children, who are found alive. The evil mother-in-law is executed for her crimes, and the reunited family lives in peace and happiness. The Goose Girl. An old queen sends her beautiful daughter to marry a prince in a distant kingdom. She provides her with valuable dowry gifts, a waiting maid, and 2 horses. Falada for the princess, who has the magical ability to speak. The queen also gives her daughter a handkerchief marked with 3 drops of her own blood, telling her it will protect her during the journey. Halfway through their travels, the princess becomes thirsty and asks her maid to bring water from a stream. The arrogant maid refuses, saying she won't serve her anymore. When the princess goes herself, she accidentally drops the precious handkerchief into the water. This loss breaks her mother's protective spell, and the evil maid takes advantage immediately. She forces the princess to switch clothes and horses, making her swear never to reveal what happened or face death. When they reach the kingdom, the maid presents herself as the bride, while the true princess is assigned to help a boy named Conrad tend geese. Fearing that the talking horse Falada might expose her deception, the false bride has him killed. The true princess, heartbroken, asks the knacker to nail Falada's head above the gate where she passes daily with the geese. Each morning and evening she speaks to the head, and it responds with comfort and recognition. While watching geese, Conrad notices the princess has beautiful golden hair. When she combs it, she sings a song calling on the wind to blow Conrad's hat away so he can't see her hair clearly. This happens repeatedly, frustrating Conrad, who reports the strange incidents to the old king. The king watches secretly and witnesses everything, realizing the goose girl must be the true princess. He gently questions her, but she cannot break her oath. However, she confesses her story to an iron stove, not knowing the king listens through the pipe. The truth revealed, the king dresses her in royal garments and presents her at a feast, asking the false bride what punishment someone deserves for such deception. Not recognizing the true princess, the maid suggests the traitor should be stripped naked, placed in a barrel studded with nails, and dragged through the streets by 2 white horses until dead. "You have pronounced your own sentence," declares the king, "and this punishment befalls the false bride. The true princess marries the prince, and they rule with wisdom and justice." The brave little tailor, the valiant little tailor. A poor tailor sits at his workbench eating bread and jam when flies swarm around his food. Annoyed, he strikes out with a cloth and kills 7 flies with 1 blow. Proud of this feat, he makes himself a belt embroidered with 7 at 1 blow and sets off into the world to seek his fortune. He puts some cheese in his pocket and captures a bird to take along. When people see his belt, they assume he killed 7 men, not flies, and word of the mighty warrior spreads quickly. Eventually, the king hears about this champion and summons him to deal with 2 troublesome giants who terrorize the countryside. If successful, the tailor will receive half the kingdom and the king's daughter in marriage. The clever tailor finds the giants sleeping under a tree and climbs up above them. He drops stones on one giant, who wakes and accuses the other of hitting him. They argue and fight each other so violently that they eventually kill one another. The tailor claims victory over both giants. Next, the king demands he capture a dangerous unicorn. The tailor tricks the beast into charging at him while he stands before a tree. At the last moment, he jumps aside, and the unicorn's horn becomes stuck in the trunk, allowing the tailor to bind it easily. Finally, he must catch a wild boar. Again, using wit over strength, he lures the boar into a chapel and escapes through a window, trapping the animal inside. Having completed all 3 impossible tasks through cleverness rather than might, the brave little tailor wins the princess and half the kingdom. Later, when his wife learns he's only a tailor, she feels deceived and asks her father to get rid of him. The king plans to have him kidnapped, but the tailor overhears and pretends to talk in his sleep about his great victories over giants, unicorns, and boars. The would-be kidnappers flee in terror. The tailor rules wisely, proving that intelligence and courage matter more than physical strength, and his secret remains safe forever. Mother Hulda, Mother Holla. A widow lives with her beautiful, hard-working daughter and her ugly, lazy stepdaughter. The lazy daughter is her mother's favourite, while the good daughter does all the household work, including spinning by a well every day. One day, the spindle falls into the well. Her stepmother angrily demands she retrieve it, so the girl jumps into the well after it. She awakens in a beautiful meadow and begins walking through this strange land. She passes an oven full of bread, crying out to be removed before burning. The kind girl helps the bread, then encounters an apple tree begging to be shaken because its fruit is ripe. She shakes down all the apples and piles them neatly. Finally, she reaches a cottage where an old woman with enormous teeth lives. This is Mother Hulda, who explains that when she shakes her feather bed, it snows on earth above. She offers the girl work, warning that she must shake the bed vigorously to make soft snow fall on the world. The girl agrees, and serves Mother Hulda faithfully, shaking the feather bed so thoroughly that feathers fly like snowflakes. After some time, despite being well treated, she becomes homesick. Understanding, Mother Hulda leads her to a great gate. As the girl passes through, a shower of gold covers her completely, and she finds herself back at the well with the golden spindle. Her stepmother and stepsister are amazed by her golden coating and the returned spindle. Hearing about Mother Hulda, the lazy daughter decides to seek the same reward. She deliberately throws a spindle down the well and jumps after it. In Mother Hulda's land, she ignores the bread's pleas for help and refuses to shake the apple tree. She agrees to work for Mother Hulda but is lazy and careless, barely shaking the feather bed. After a short time, Mother Hulda dismisses her. At the gate, instead of gold, a kettle of pitch pours over the lazy girl, and it sticks to her forever. She returns home permanently covered in black pitch, a fitting reward for her selfish laziness, while her kind stepsister lives comfortably with her golden gift. The Wolf and the 7 Young Kids. A mother goat must go into the forest to find food for her 7 little kids. Before leaving, she warns them about the wicked wolf who might try to trick his way into their house. She tells them they can recognize the wolf by his rough voice and black feet, unlike her gentle voice and white feet. The wolf soon arrives and knocks, demanding entry. The kids refuse, recognizing his gruff voice. He goes to a shopkeeper and eats chalk to soften his voice, then returns. This time his voice is gentle, but when he puts his paws on the windowsill, the kids see they're black and again refuse him entry. The wolf visits a baker and covers his feet with white dough to disguise them. Now, with a soft voice and white paws, he fools the little kids into opening the door. They scatter and hide throughout the house, in the table drawer, bed, oven, cupboard, wash basin, and under the washtub. Only the youngest, hiding in the grandfather clock, escapes notice. The wolf finds and swallows 6 of the kids whole, then lies down under a tree for a nap, his belly bulging with his meal. When the mother goat returns, she finds the house in chaos, and only the youngest kid remaining. Learning what happened, she takes scissors, needle, and thread to find the sleeping wolf. His enormous belly moves with the living kids inside. Carefully, she cuts open his stomach while he sleeps, and all 6 kids jump out alive and unharmed. The wolf's greed made him swallow them whole without chewing. The mother goat sends her children to gather large stones, which they place inside the wolf's belly before she sews it shut. When the wolf wakes, he's incredibly thirsty from the stones. He goes to a well to drink, but the weight makes him fall in and drown. The 7 little kids dance around the well with their mother, singing happily about the wolf's demise and their family's safety. The Elves, the Shoemaker and the Elves. A poor shoemaker has only enough leather left to make 1 pair of shoes. He cuts out the leather pieces carefully and leaves them on his workbench, planning to sew them in the morning. When he awakens, he finds the most beautiful pair of shoes he's ever seen, with every stitch perfect and neat. A customer immediately buys them for more than the usual price, providing enough money for leather for 2 pairs of shoes. The shoemaker cuts out the new leather and again leaves the pieces on his bench overnight. In the morning, 2 pairs of exquisite shoes await him. This pattern continues night after night. Whatever leather he cuts out is transformed into perfect shoes by morning. Soon, customers flock to his shop for the extraordinary footwear, and the shoemaker becomes prosperous again. One evening near Christmas, the shoemaker and his wife decide to stay awake and discover who has been helping them. They hide and watch as midnight approaches. Exactly at 12, two tiny naked elves appear and begin working with incredible speed and skill, using the shoemaker's tools to create perfect shoes. They work all night and disappear at dawn. The grateful wife suggests they should make clothes for the helpful elves, who must be cold working naked in winter. She sews tiny shirts, coats, vests and pants, while her husband makes miniature shoes. On Christmas Eve, instead of leaving leather pieces, they place the little clothes on the workbench. The elves arrive, discover the gifts, and dress quickly with evident delight. They dance and leap about joyfully, then disappear forever. The shoemaker never sees them again, but his business continues to prosper, and he and his wife live comfortably for the rest of their lives, always remembering the magical assistance that saved them from poverty. Thumbling, Tom Thumb. A poor peasant and his wife desperately want a child, even if it were no bigger than a thumb. Their wish is granted when the wife gives birth to a tiny but perfectly formed boy no larger than a thumb, whom they name Thumbling. Despite his size, he's clever, brave, and full of mischief. One day his father needs to take wood to town but has no one to bring the horse and cart back home. Thumbling volunteers to drive, sitting inside the horse's ear and calling out directions. People are amazed to see a driverless cart moving through the streets with a tiny voice giving commands. Two strangers offer to buy the remarkable boy to exhibit him for money. Thumbling secretly signals his father to accept, planning to escape and return home. The men take him away, but Thumbling soon slips away from them and hides in a mouse hole. When they can't find him, they give up and leave. After dark, Thumbling emerges and seeks shelter for the night. He spots light in a house where robbers are planning to steal the parson's money. Thumbling offers to help by squeezing through the iron bars to pass treasure out to them, but once inside the parson's house he calls out loudly, "Do you want everything that's here?" hoping to wake the household. The robbers keep shushing him, but he continues shouting. Finally, the maid wakes up and comes to investigate. The robbers flee, and Thumbling hides in the hay. The next morning a cow eats the hay with Thumbling inside and swallows him. From inside the cow's stomach he calls out, startling everyone who hears the cow talking. Thinking the cow is bewitched, they kill it. The piece of stomach containing Thumbling is thrown to a wolf who swallows it. From inside the wolf, Thumbling promises to show the animal where to find the finest food, at his father's house. The wolf follows his directions and eats so much that he becomes stuck in the pantry. Thumbling calls out, waking his parents, who kill the wolf and cut out their son. After all his adventures, the tiny hero is happy to be safely home with his loving family. The Golden Bird. A king's magnificent golden apple tree is robbed each night of a single apple, despite guards watching constantly. The king's 3 sons volunteer to catch the thief. The 2 elder sons fall asleep during their watches, but the youngest stays awake and sees a beautiful golden bird stealing an apple. He shoots an arrow and wounds it, causing 1 golden feather to fall. The king desires the entire bird and sends his sons to capture it. Along their journey, the younger brothers meet a talking fox who offers advice. Stay at a shabby inn rather than a grand one. Don't buy a worthless horse, and don't ransom someone from a gallows. The 2 elder brothers ignore this wisdom, staying at the luxurious inn where they indulge in pleasure and forget their mission. The youngest brother follows the fox's advice and continues alone toward the castle where the golden bird lives. The fox warns him to take the bird from its wooden cage but not transfer it to the beautiful golden cage beside it. However, when the prince sees the plain wooden cage, he thinks such a magnificent bird deserves the golden one. The moment he makes the switch, the bird screeches, waking the guards who capture him. The king of this land agrees to free the prince and give him the golden bird if he can bring back the golden horse from another kingdom. Again, the fox provides guidance. Take the horse with its old leather saddle, not the golden one beside it. Once more, the prince succumbs to temptation and chooses the golden saddle, causing the horse to neigh and alert the guards. This king demands the prince bring him the beautiful princess from the golden castle in exchange for the horse. The fox helps the prince reach the princess, who agrees to come with him because she loves him. But the fox warns not to let her say goodbye to her parents. When the tender-hearted prince allows this, she weeps so pitifully that her parents capture him. Eventually, through various adventures and the fox's continued help, the prince succeeds in all 3 quests. He rescues his brothers from execution, wins the princess's hand in marriage, obtains the golden horse and golden bird, and returns home triumphant. The fox reveals himself to be the princess's enchanted brother, finally freed from his curse by the prince's kindness. The Water of Life. A dying king's 3 sons seek the water of life to cure their father. The 2 elder sons are proud and selfish, while the youngest is kind-hearted. Each brother sets out separately to find this magical water. The elder brothers encounter a dwarf on the road who asks where they're going. They rudely refuse to answer, and are cursed to become stuck in narrow mountain ravines, where their horses can neither advance nor retreat. The youngest prince treats the dwarf respectfully and explains his mission. Grateful for his courtesy, the dwarf tells him where to find the water of life. In an enchanted castle where he must arrive before midnight, armed with 2 loaves of bread and an iron wand. The dwarf gives him detailed instructions about the perils ahead and how to overcome them. Following this advice, the prince reaches the castle, feeds the bread to 2 hungry lions guarding the entrance, and uses the iron wand to open 3 locked doors. In the first room, he finds a sword and bread that will serve him well. In the second room, a beautiful princess tells him she's been enchanted for 7 years and will marry whoever frees her in exactly 1 year. She gives him her ring and tells him where to find the water of life in the third room. He obtains the precious water but falls asleep and barely escapes as the castle doors close at the stroke of midnight, catching just the heel of his boot. On his return journey, he rescues his trapped brothers, who are jealous of his success. While he sleeps, they steal the water of life and replace it with ordinary well water. They present the true water to their father, who recovers immediately, while the younger son's false water makes the king sicker and he banishes his son. However, the prince's other adventures, saving kingdoms with the dwarf's gifts of the magic sword and endless bread, spread his fame far and wide. A year later, the princess sends golden gifts to find her true love, and the king realizes his younger son was honest, while the elder brothers were deceitful. The prince returns, marries the princess, inherits his father's kingdom, and rules with the wisdom and kindness he showed throughout his quest. The 12 Huntsmen. A prince is engaged to a princess he loves dearly, but when his father the king dies suddenly, the prince must return to inherit the throne. His dying father had made him promise to marry a different princess for political reasons. Honour bound to keep this deathbed promise, the prince sorrowfully tells his beloved that he must marry another. Heartbroken but determined, the princess gathers 11 maidens who look exactly like her, and they all disguise themselves as men to become huntsmen. She leads them to the prince's court, where they're hired as royal hunters due to their exceptional skill and beauty. The prince doesn't recognize his beloved in her disguise, but he feels strangely drawn to this particular huntsman. Meanwhile, The king owns a wise lion who can see through any deception. The lion tells the king that the 12 huntsmen are actually women and suggests a test. Scatter peas in their path, because women take small, careful steps while men stride boldly. The clever princess overhears this plan and warns her companions to walk with long, masculine strides. The lion then suggests placing spinning wheels in their way, claiming women cannot resist touching them. Again forewarned, the huntsmen ignore the spinning wheels completely. Finally, the lion advises the king to give each huntsman a lily to carry, saying men will hold them carelessly while women cradle them gently. But just as this test begins, news arrives that the prince's first beloved has died. Actually, false news planted by the princess's father to test the prince's heart. Upon hearing this, the prince collapses with grief, and the disguised princess drops her lily to catch him, her ring rolling off her finger. The prince recognizes both the ring and his true love, and she reveals her identity. Realizing his heart belongs completely to her, the prince breaks his engagement to the other princess and marries his first love. Her 11 companions marry 11 courtiers, and everyone lives happily, having learned that true love cannot be disguised or denied. Iron John, Iron Hands. Near a royal castle lies a dangerous forest where anyone who enters disappears forever. One day, a huntsman volunteers to investigate and discovers a deep pool where a wild man with iron-coloured hair and skin lives. The wild man is captured and locked in the castle courtyard in an iron cage. The king declares that anyone who opens the cage will die, and he gives the key to the queen for safekeeping. Years later, the king's young son is playing with his golden ball when it rolls into the wild man's cage. The boy asks for it back, and the wild man agrees to return it if the boy frees him. Initially refusing, the boy eventually steals the key from under his mother's pillow and opens the cage. The wild man, whose name is Iron John, takes the boy with him into the forest, saying he can never return home because his father would kill him for the disobedience. Iron John reveals that he's actually a powerful and wealthy king who was cursed. He sends the boy to guard a magical golden pool in the forest, warning him not to let anything touch the water or drop anything into it. Despite his good intentions, the boy accidentally gets his finger in the water when it's stung by a bee, turning it golden. The next day, a hair falls from his head into the pool, turning all his hair golden. On the third day, trying to drink without getting his hair wet, his long locks fall forward into the water, turning completely golden. Iron John sends him away to learn about poverty and hardship, but gives him a promise. If he calls Iron John's name 3 times in the forest, help will come. The boy works as a kitchen servant in another kingdom, always wearing a cap to hide his golden hair. The king's daughter notices him and eventually discovers his secret. When enemy armies attack the kingdom, the boy calls upon Iron John, who provides him with armour and a magnificent horse. He leads the king's forces to victory 3 times, always disappearing afterward. Finally, the princess holds a festival where she throws golden apples to identify the mysterious knight. She throws 3 apples directly to him, and when he catches the third, his cap falls off, revealing his golden hair. Iron John appears and explains that the curse is broken because the young man showed courage and loyalty. Iron John restores the boy's royal status, and he marries the princess, inheriting great wealth and living happily ever after. If these timeless fairy tales brought you peaceful dreams, gently tap that like button, leave us a magical comment, and subscribe to Sleepyhead Society for more enchanting bedtime stories. Sweet dreams, and we'll see you in the next fairy tale adventure.